She said wrong person after I kissed my bodyguard by mistake, then pulled me into her room and showed me exactly who the right person was. Before telling you how a case of mistaken identity in a dark hallway turned into the most intense and unexpected romance of my life, tell me in the comments what city you are watching from, and please subscribe to help the channel grow so you do not miss more WLW stories like this between women. My name is Sienna Lawson. I am 31 years old, and until 6 months ago, I had never needed a bodyguard. I am a documentary filmmaker, not a celebrity. My work focuses on environmental activism, corporate corruption, the kind of stories that matter but do not usually make you famous. But my last film exposed a pharmaceutical company's illegal dumping practices, and apparently some very powerful people were not happy about it. The threats started small, angry emails, nasty comments on social media. Then they escalated. Someone followed me home. My apartment was broken into, though nothing was stolen. Just a message left on my mirror in red lipstick: "Stop talking." My lawyer insisted I hire security. I resisted at first, hating the idea of someone shadowing my every move. But after my producer found a tracking device on my car, I gave in. That was how Daniela Cruz entered my life. She was not what I expected. When the security firm said they were sending their best, I pictured someone tall and intimidating, maybe ex-military with a crew cut and a permanent scowl. Instead, I got a woman in her early 30s with warm brown skin, dark hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail, and eyes that seemed to catalog everything in a room within seconds. She was fit, yes, with the kind of athletic build that suggested she could handle herself, but she moved with a grace that made her seem less like a bodyguard and more like a dancer. "Miss Lawson," she said when we met, extending her hand. "I am Daniela Cruz. I will be handling your security." "Sienna," I said, shaking her hand. Her grip was firm, confident, and this feels very dramatic for someone who makes documentaries. "The people you expose do not see it as just documentaries," she said. "They see it as a threat to their bottom line. That makes you a target." She was professional, thorough, and maddeningly calm. She moved into the guest room of my apartment, insisted on vetting everyone who came near me, and accompanied me everywhere. To interviews, to editing sessions, to the coffee shop 2 blocks away. At first, it was suffocating. I was used to independence, to moving through the world on my own terms. Having someone constantly at my side felt like being under surveillance. But Daniela was good at her job. She blended into the background when needed, stayed alert without being overbearing, and somehow made me feel safe without making me feel fragile. Over time, I got used to her presence. More than that, I started to enjoy it. She was smart, with a dry sense of humor that caught me off guard. During long stakeouts while I filmed, we would talk. She told me about growing up in Miami, about her years in private security, about the time she accidentally pepper sprayed herself during training. I told her about my obsession with exposing injustice, about my complicated relationship with my family, about the time I got stuck in a tree while filming a piece on deforestation. We developed an easy rhythm. I would edit footage late into the night, and she would sit nearby, reading or scrolling through security updates, occasionally bringing me tea without being asked. She learned my routines, my quirks, the way I needed silence when I was working and conversation when I was spiraling. Somewhere along the way, my awareness of her shifted. I started noticing things I should not have been noticing, the way her jaw clenched when she was on high alert, the way she smiled, small and private, when I said something that amused her. The way her presence in a room made me feel both safer and more aware of my own heartbeat. I told myself it was just proximity. You spend that much time with someone, you are bound to develop some level of attachment. But the truth was harder to ignore when I found myself looking forward to the moments when she would walk into a room, when I would catch myself watching her instead of focusing on my work, when the thought of her eventually leaving made my chest tighten. I was attracted to my bodyguard. It was unprofessional, inappropriate, and completely inconvenient. I did not act on it. Daniela was there to do a job, and I was not about to make her uncomfortable or compromise her professionalism. So I buried it, the same way I buried a lot of inconvenient feelings. Then came the night everything changed. I was hosting a small gathering at my apartment, just a few close friends and colleagues celebrating the completion of my latest film. Daniela was there, of course, positioned near the door, doing her usual scan of the room. She was off duty in the sense that the event was private and vetted, but she never fully relaxed. The gathering went late. People drank wine, argued about politics, laughed too loud. Around midnight, most of the guests started to leave. By 1 a.m, it was just me and a handful of stragglers cleaning up. Daniela had stepped out to do a perimeter check, something she did periodically even in my own building. I was in the kitchen, rinsing glasses, when I heard the door open and close. Footsteps in the hallway. "Daniela," I called out, not turning around. "Can you grab the recycling bin from the living room?" The footsteps came closer. I felt a presence behind me, warm and close. I turned, still holding a glass, and found myself face to face with someone in the dim hallway light. I did not think. I just acted. I leaned in and kissed her. It was brief, impulsive, fueled by too much wine and months of suppressed attraction. My lips met hers, soft and startled, and for a second there was no resistance. Then a voice, not Daniela's, said, "Wrong person." I jerked back, my heart slamming into my ribs. The hallway light flicked on, and I found myself staring at my friend and producer, Carmen, who was looking at me with wide eyes and a bemused smile. "Oh my God," I said, mortified. "Carmen, I am so sorry. I thought you were someone else. I did not mean to—" "Clearly," she said, laughing, "though I am flattered. Should I be worried that you are kissing people in dark hallways?" "No, I thought you were Daniela. I was not thinking I stopped talking because over Carmen's shoulder, I saw Daniela standing in the doorway, her expression unreadable. Carmen followed my gaze, her smile widening. "Oh," she said, understanding dawning. "Oh, this just got interesting." "Carmen, please," I said. "Say no more," she said, holding up her hands. "I will see myself out, but Sienna, for what it is worth, I think you should probably talk to her." She squeezed my arm and walked past Daniela, who stepped aside to let her through. The door clicked shut, leaving the two of us alone. "Daniela," I started, but she held up a hand. "Do not," she said quietly. "Do not apologize for something that was an accident." "It was not entirely an accident," I said, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. "I mean, I thought you were you. I wanted to kiss you. I have wanted to for months." Her expression shifted, something flickering in her eyes. "Sienna," she said, her voice tight, "you cannot say things like that." "Why not?" I asked, my heart pounding. "Because it is unprofessional. Because I am your client. I know all the reasons it is a bad idea, Daniela, but I am tired of pretending I do not feel this way." She stepped closer, her jaw clenched. "You have no idea what you are asking." "Then tell me," I said. "Tell me why this is such a bad idea." "Because I am supposed to protect you," she said, her voice low and strained. "And if I let this happen, if I let myself want you the way I have been trying not to, I compromise that. I compromise everything." "You want me," I said, the words barely a whisper. She closed her eyes, exhaling slowly. "Of course I want you. I have wanted you since the second week of this assignment, but wanting you and acting on it are two very different things." "What if I do not care about the rules?" I said. "You should," she said, "because I am the one who has to enforce them." We stood there, the space between us charged and unbearable. Then, without thinking, without calculating the consequences, I closed the distance and kissed her again. This time, it was not a mistake. This time I knew exactly who I was kissing. For a moment, she did not move. Then her hands came up, gripping my waist, pulling me closer, and she kissed me back with a ferocity that took my breath away. It was not gentle. It was desperate, like something that had been held back for too long finally breaking free. When we pulled apart, both breathing hard, she rested her forehead against mine. "This is a terrible idea," she said. "I know," I said. "I could lose my job," she said. "I know," I said. "I do not care," she said, and kissed me again. She backed me against the wall, her hands sliding into my hair, her mouth moving to my neck. I gasped, my fingers gripping the fabric of her shirt, pulling her closer. Everything I had been feeling, everything I had been suppressing, came flooding to the surface. "Bedroom," I managed to say. She pulled back just enough to look at me, her eyes dark and searching. "Are you sure?" "Yes," I said. "Are you?" She hesitated for only a second. Then she took my hand and led me down the hallway. Her room, the guest room that had become hers over the past months, was neat and sparse. She closed the door behind us, and for a moment, we just stood there, the weight of what we were about to do settling between us. "If we do this," she said, "everything changes." "I know," I said. "I am okay with that." She stepped closer, cupping my face in her hands. "I need you to understand something. If we cross this line, I am not going to be able to go back to just being your bodyguard. I will still protect you, but I will not be able to pretend I do not care about you in ways that have nothing to do with security." "Good," I said, "because I do not want you to pretend." She kissed me again, slower this time, and it felt like a promise. We spent the night tangled in each other, talking and touching and learning each other in ways that went far beyond the boundaries we had been maintaining. She was careful, attentive, attuned to every response, every breath. And when I fell asleep in her arms, I felt safer than I had in months. The next morning, reality crept back in. I woke up to sunlight streaming through the window and Daniela sitting on the edge of the bed, already dressed, her phone in her hand. "Hey," I said, sitting up. She turned, her expression soft. "Hey. Are you okay?" I asked. "I should be asking you that," she said. "I am more than okay," I said. "Are you?" She was quiet for a moment. "I need to call my supervisor. I need to disclose this." "What will happen?" I asked. "Probably reassignment," she said. "They will put someone else on your case." "I do not want someone else," I said. "I know," she said. "But I am not going to compromise your safety because I let my feelings get in the way." "What if we figured out a different arrangement?" I said. "What if you transitioned to a consulting role and someone else handled the day-to-day? You could still be involved, but it would not be the same conflict of interest." She considered this. "That might work. But you need to be okay with having another person around." "As long as you are still around," I said. "I can deal with it." She smiled, leaning in to kiss my forehead. "I will make the call." Over the next few weeks, we navigated the transition. Daniela stepped back from active duty, moving into a consulting and oversight role. Another bodyguard, a woman named Sam, who was professional and competent but decidedly not Daniela, took over the day-to-day security. It was strange at first, adjusting to the new dynamic, but it worked. Daniela and I started dating, officially, outside the constraints of a professional relationship. We went to dinners, to movies, to quiet nights at home where we did not have to worry about crossing lines. She met my friends, I met hers. We figured out how to be together in a way that did not compromise either of our principles. The threats against me eventually subsided. The people behind them were exposed and prosecuted, largely thanks to the film that had started the whole mess. My need for constant security lessened, and Sam transitioned to part-time. But Daniela stayed. 6 months later, we were sitting on my couch, her head in my lap, my fingers running through her hair as we watched a documentary I had nothing to do with for once. "Do you ever regret it?" I asked. "Giving up the assignment?" She looked up at me, her eyes warm. "Not for a second. Do you regret kissing the wrong person?" I laughed. It turned out to be the right person in the end. "Good answer," she said, pulling me down for a kiss. She said wrong person after I kissed my bodyguard by mistake, then pulled me into her room and showed me exactly who the right person was, and I have never been more grateful for a case of mistaken identity in my life.